Welcome to section 3. In this section, we are going to see how to initialize a new repository, make some changes to the working directory, and at the same time be able to push those changes to a remote repository. In our case, our remote repository is going to be hosted on a platform called GitHub. In section 1, this series of videos on Git and GitHub projects, we did go through how to create an account in GitHub. So, however, if you don't have a GitHub account, it's very simple. You can just come here on your browser, GitHub. Of course, if you come here, you can sign in. All you need to do is to follow the steps that you're going to be taken through. And at the end of those steps, you should be able to have your GitHub account open and ready to go. Let's go back to the notes. To be able to do this, we are going to run a series of commands. Let's first of all go back to Visual Studio Code. And this is where we stopped in section 2. In section 2, we saw exactly how to create a working directory. So if you don't have a working directory, this is the name of the working directory we created in section 2. You can go to section 2. The link to that video is going to be added to the description part of this new video. After having a working directory, you are now set to go because you can be able to add changes in terms of files. We are also going to store our files inside this working directory. A working directory is like our working space. Anything we want to make changes to the files we have for the specific project we are working on, the directory is where we can be able to do all that. Before we get started, I want, of course, to run this command. This command is going to show exactly whether we have any folder or file or any content in our working directory. And in this case, as you can see, we don't have anything. However, if I was to run this command, we're going to see that we do have directories that have the dot in front of them. By default, these directories are usually hidden by the system. And unless you run this command, ls-a, you might not be able to see them. I want you to be careful here because when we initiate our working directory, you are going to see that we are going to get another directory that starts with a dot. And the name of that directory is going to be .git. That is going to be an evidence that we have actually created a Git repository. For now, we don't have a Git repository yet. Another thing I want you to pay attention to is the branch that we are sitting on. As you can see, we are seated on a branch called main. When we run the first command to initialize our working directory, this branch is going to change. So that's something I would like you to pay attention to. And of course, it's going to change from main to master. Let's clear this. Now it's time to go back to the notes. And in the notes section, we do have these commands, as you can see them. And each command has some notes below. And these notes are used to tell you exactly what the command does. We're going to start with git init. This command is going to initialize a new Git repository in our current working directory. Let's go back to our Visual Studio Code and let's type the command git init and see what happens. As you can see, we have a message that is saying initialize an empty Git repository. We clear our terminal. And now if we were to run this command ls, our directory is still empty. But if we come and we run ls-a, we can now see that we have a folder here called .git. This .git contains all the necessary plugins to make this a Git repository. Up to this stage, something else has also happened. We were sitting on the main branch, and now we are on the master branch. Now, definitely, we do have a Git repository with us. We clear this. We go back to the notes. And in the notes section, we're going to go to the next command. The next command is going to help us to add files to the staging area. To be able to do that, we're going to use the command git add and then space and dot. And this command is going to stage all the changes in the working directory. Let's come back to Visual Studio Code. There is a command I want you to be familiar with called git status. If you enter, we have nothing to commit. We have nothing that we have added. This is because our working directory is empty. So what we need to do is to add a file into our working directory. To do that, we can manually come here and we can add a file, or we can do that straight from the terminal. We can do touch, which is a command, is a bash command that allow us to be able to create files. And we can say patch-management.sh. Not a must to be .sh. In this case, I just want to create a script. In my courses, I do explain what scripts are. Scripts are nothing, but we use them for automating repetitive tasks in different environments at workplace. A script, of course, is nothing difficult, but it's just a series of commands. We're going to enter. When I enter, I want you to pay attention to what is going to happen on this side. Enter. And as you can see, we do have the file that has been added inside our working directory. Now, if we say git status, you're going to see that yes, now we do have some changes in form of a file that is not tracked. It's not tracked yet because we have not added the changes to the staging area of our working directory. So now, Visual Studio Code is very vital because it gives you more functionalities. Let's see one of the functionalities that we can enjoy when we are using Visual Studio Code. I can click on this file, and what happens is going to open an editor here, which I can use to put information inside of this script. Because it's a bash script, I'm going to start with a very famous line odd shebang bin bash. This shebang is just an interpreter that is interpreting the kind of environment that our script is going to be running in. In our case, since this is a bash script, our script is going to run in the bash environment. One thing I want you to understand is that we are going to focus on Ubuntu distros. We have different kind of operating systems, and we have Linux, and Linux has many distributes or distros or flavors because it's an open source. Since we are focusing on Ubuntu, package manager is what we call apt. And this apt is the package manager we are going to use to manage packages in our Ubuntu server. Now from here, we're going to give some more guidelines. We're going to start with the first command, and this command is going to help us to make sure that we have all the packages that we need in our system. And to check that all the packages are available in our system. To do that, now we can go ahead and add the command. And the command is sudo apt get, which is the older version. Today, some people don't need to add -get, but when I'm updating, upgrading, auto cleaning, and auto removing plugins in my system, specifically Ubuntu or Debian, I still like to do apt-get. So we're going to do update. This is going to update all the packages and make sure that we have all the packages we need in our system before we can then upgrade them. Next, give them more guidelines. We are now going to upgrade all the packages. To do that, we're going to have another command, sudo apt-get upgrade. And because this command has process that involve adding or installing and of course removing some packages, we have to add -y, which is a confirmation. And when we add this confirmation, which is very necessary, especially when you are running script, it means that the system is definitely just going to proceed in case we come to a point where we need to confirm whether we need yes or no. That's enough for now. You need now to save this information. To be able to do this, you can come here where you can see the file. You click on it, you come all the way here, you can see save. Just click on it, and now this has been saved. We can increase the size of terminal, and now we can come here and say ls. You can see that now our patch management has actually changed the color because we have added the interpretation environment, which means this script is going to be running in bash environment. From here, there is a command you can use to see the content inside of this script, and that is cat patch And if you do so, you can see the information. Another thing you can do, clear this, you can use VI A VI is nothing but is just a terminal editor, VI. This VI can also be able to see the same information, and you can edit it the way you want. However, as we saw, you can see that using Visual Studio Code is very easy, because now when you edit using the terminal editor, you have to know exactly how to save. And I have seen some people struggle with this process. To be able to save any information that you edit inside the terminal editor, you have to do escape, shift, colon, X, exclamation mark, and enter. You do that, again, you are able to save the information. Since we have done that, we can now come and say git status. And you can see that, yes, we do have untracked files. Now we need to go back to the notes and see exactly what we need to do. In the notes section, we are given a command here that is telling us to be able to add the changes that we have made in our working directory. We need to run this command, git add space and dot. We come and paste it here and enter. And when you do that, let's first of all clear our terminal. Then we do git status again. You're going to see that, yes, changes are now ready to be committed. And of course, we go back to the notes and we see the next command we need to run. The next command, of course, is a command that is going to help us commit the changes to the local repository. Remember, this repository is only accessible to the people or to whoever have access to my computer. This is why we are calling it a local repository. To be able to commit the changes, this is a command that we need to run. It's called a git commit -m. -m stand for the message. And of course, we have to add the message that we want to include with our commit. To be able to do that, we just need to copy this. Or we can just simply go and type the command. We can clear this and say git commit -m for the message. Then, of course, you can use double quotation or single quotation. And we can say, this is our first repository, if it is, containing bash script. And then, of course, you need to close with another single quotation. Then you enter. And when you do that, then we come back and say git status and see that now on the branch master, nothing to commit, working tree is clean. Now from here, we need to connect to our remote repository. But before we can be able to connect to our remote repository, we need to go in our remote platform. In our case, we are using GitHub, and that is where we are going to create a remote repository. Then we come back and connect with our local repository. To do that, we're going to go on the browser. You type GitHub. Then you can sign in. I'm already signed in. If you are not, you need to sign in. If you don't know exactly if you don't have a GitHub account, of course, you can go to the previous videos and you can see exactly how we created one. Now I just need to come to repositories And these are all the repositories that I have. Now what I need to do is to come to this plus sign, and I can just come here and create a new repository. I can give this repository a name, and the name I'm going to give it is Git project. I'm not going to do anything else. I'll keep it simple, and I'll say create a repository. When you do so, you are going to be brought to this page. This page, we have already done this. Init, add, commit. Of course, you can create another branch. But all I need is to take this, and I want you to know this is exactly what I have in the note. Let's go to my note section. The note section says, git remote add origin. Let's come back here. Git remote add origin, and then the URL for the remote repository. That's exactly what the notes are saying. Remote repository URL. So we're going to copy this as it is, just this line. We come back here and paste and enter. And when you do that, and then you say git remote, is going to be able to tell you that the origin exists. Let's run another command, git branch -r. This one, of course, tells you exactly that a remote repository has been created. This can also be able to tell you whether you have any branches from the remote repository. For now, we don't have. We continue. Now from there, we are ready to push our repository because we have been able to make a connection between the local and the remote repository. To do that, we just need to come here, copy this, come back here and paste it. Of course, getting an error. So we have to ask ourselves, what is happening? Definitely, here you are saying main as a branch. But if you look at where we are seated on a master branch. And this is why you are getting an error. So to rectify this error is very simple. You just recall your previous command. And in this case, you change the branch from main to master, and we enter. When you do so, now what has happened is that our local repository, a copy of our Git local repository, has been able to be pushed to the remote repository. To verify that, we need to go back to our browser, and we need to come back here to our remote repository, and all we need to do is refresh. And when you do that, you can be able to see now that we do have the patch management.sh. Let's click on it, and definitely this is exactly what we did. This is all the information that we added. Let's go back. You can add a README. README is a very important section because it gives the reader or whoever is using this repository some kind of guideline on what is expected or on how to use this project or how to use a script that we have. And we can guide people here. We can say, to run this script, you need to have an Ubuntu distribute, clone the repository. Before you can even say clone, we can say fork the repository to have a copy. Then SSH into your Ubuntu server, then clone this repository using git clone, and of course the URL of the repository. Then all you need to do is change directory to the one containing the script. And of course, you need to use you need to give script execution permission. Message, and then from there to run the script, use this command, and now you can just provide the command // and the name of the script. So this is going to be to act like a guideline, is going to guide whoever is going to be accessing this repository. We can actually increase the font size by simply putting $sign in front of each line. You can also space them by just enter, same to this, and I'm going to remove this on that command. Then we can simply commit. And when you do so, you can see that now we do have some guideline here. To run the script, you need to have an Ubuntu distribute, fork the repository to have a copy, SSH into your Ubuntu server, clone repository, change directory, give this permission, and then to run the script, use this command. Let's go back to the notes. And that brings us to the end of how to create a brand new repository and push the repository to a remote storage. In our case, the remote storage for the Git repository is what we call GitHub. Now from here, I want us to go to an Ubuntu server. Of course, if you go to the previous section, this series of videos, we did create an Ubuntu server, and I did provide a video on how you can be able to create an Ubuntu server on AWS, go through all the processes, provide the network, and at the same time be able to SSH. So I'm not going to go through that now, but I will provide the link to the video in the description of this video. Now, what do we do from here? From this point, we need to go back to our Visual Studio Code. I know this is the name of my working directory, but unfortunately, I don't have a PEM key. As we saw from the previous project, that you need to have a PEM key available in your working directory if you are going to be able to SSH into an Ubuntu server that is actually provisioned in AWS. To do that is very simple for me. And also copy, I'm actually going to just copy. I was struggling with this a little bit. So I'll come here, show more options, copy this. And then of course, I'll come back to the folder. And what I'll do is show more options. I'll come and paste it. So let's see whether it has been able to come to this side. Finally, it's here. Don't need this one. Finally, it's here. So that was quite some hassle here, but finally it's here. So we have it. If I do ls, of course, I can see it here. Now with this PEM key being here, I can be able to SSH into my Ubuntu server. Again, we saw exactly how to SSH using the video that I provided in section 2. So to be able to do that, you just need to come and highlight this. Then you go to connect. In the connect section, we are going to use SSH. The SSH, you just need to copy this. And then, of course, you come back here, you paste, and then you say yes. And you're good to go. Now we are inside the Ubuntu server. Inside Ubuntu, of course, we need to become the root, sudo su. And the first thing we need to do is to check our version of our Git. As you can see, we have a different version from what we have in Windows. So what we can do from here is to go back to our notes and see exactly how we can work with an existing repository. This repository, first of all, is already in the GitHub platform. So how can we work with it? It's very easy. What we need to do is to come back to where repository is. You need to come here. And of course, you can click on the directory of the project. You need to fork this repository. For myself, I cannot fork it because it's mine. But when you fork it, you are going to be taken through a series of steps. In those series of steps, you'll be able to have a copy of this repository, and that copy is going to have all the information that you need. However, to be able to clone it, you need to come to this green button. You need to copy this one, and then of course you need to come back to your Ubuntu, and then all you need to say is git clone, and then the URL for that remote repository. And then you enter. When you do so, you can clear your terminal and the command ls, and you are going to see that yes, the working directory that contain the files for this project has actually been brought from the remote to your local repository. Now, what you need to do is just to change directory, which is CD, which stands for change directory, and you are changing to this new directory, came from the remote repository. You just say that, you enter, and when you do ls, you are going to find that yes, we do have the patch management.sh here, and we do have the README information that we added. So far, so good. Now from here, we need to go back to the repository and see the guidelines that we gave the person that want to use it. We said to run the script, you need to have an Ubuntu distribute. We already have Ubuntu. As you see, we have the Ubuntu server. You need to fork the repository to have a copy. Yes, this is mine, but if you can fork this repository, of course, you are going to have a copy of it. Then you need to SSH into your Ubuntu server, which I did, but in this case, I did not go through the entire process because we did this in section 2 of this series of videos. And if you don't have a way to know how to SSH, in the section 2 of these videos, I do have a link that can take you exactly to another video that I created that will help you to SSH into an Ubuntu server in AWS. And that video covers in details exactly how to create the network, how to create an instance, and how to be able to SSH. Then, of course, we just cloned by running the command git clone and the URL of the repository. Here we do have a mistake, a simple one, which you can just click here and edit. It should be repository. Then from there, we did change the directory to the one that contained the information that we got from the remote repository. And after doing that, now we can be able to see the patch management.sh. We are also able to see the README file. Now what we need to do is to run this command chmod so that we can give this script the permission to be executed. I want you to know the color of this script before, of course, we run the gmod command. It's actually white, which means it doesn't have the execution permission. You can also know that by doing ls-l, and you are going to see that, yes, this script is missing the execution permission. That's what we need to add. Do that is going to be gmod plus x. This is explicit way of giving permission. And then, of course, patch management, enter ls. And then, of course, you can see that the color has actually changed to green, which means that this script is ready to run. It's ready to go. Now, to be able to run this script, use this command, / and the name of the script. So it's going to be / patchmanagement.sh. Enter. And now, of course, you can see we have automated the process of updating and upgrading our Ubuntu system. And because we did put -y for confirmation, we don't have to answer any prompt that might be asking us a question, yes or no. And we are done. So that process has been automated using a script, and we are done with upgrading and updating our Ubuntu system. That's exactly how you can go, or I can share with you a remote repository, and you can use it to enhance your productivity at your workplace. Now we return back. Let's open a new terminal, git bash terminal. Let's check the version of our Git. And yes, now we are back to Windows. We are done with that. Now we go back to our notes. Yes, this is how you work with an existing repository. It's exactly what we have done. But again, we can still make some more changes. Let's go and clone this in our Visual Studio Code. What we can do here, we can open a new terminal because we already have this repository in our local environment. If we want to work with an existing repository, we can actually let everything go. We come back here to Visual Studio Code, and we open a new window. And when we do so, of course, we don't need welcome. Then we open a new terminal. A new terminal is going to be created for us. We need, of course, to use a bash. And now here we go to go. We no longer have the working directory, and we no longer have our Git repository. This is because this time we are not creating a new repository. This time we are going to work with an existing Git repository that is in the remote platform. So we go to our remote platform. Again, you follow the same steps we did with the Ubuntu. You need to fork this repository. You need to have a copy of yours. And after having the copy, now you can come here to the green button and you can just copy this. Then you come back here. And of course, make sure that you do have the Git. You can run this command to verify that the Git exists in your system, in your Windows system. So now we can clear this, and we can say git clone, and then of course we just paste the URL for where our Git repository in the remote is. Then we enter. Of course, when we do so, we can clear this, and when we do ls, we should be able to see, of course, this actually came to my other folders. There's something we can do here. This is my fault. There's something easy we can do. Let's first of all create a working directory so that we can separate we can separate our remote repository from the rest of the directories or files that I have. So we go to say working with remote repo, or we can say an existing repository. Now we do ls, we're going to see it here. You can just seed into it. And now we are good to go. We clear this. And now with this, we can go and clone, git clone, paste the URL, enter. And of course, we clear this. We do ls. And now we can see this directory that is also in the remote. All we need to do is to do cd. And then, of course, pass letter, tab it, and you go to go. Now you do ls. Of course, you can see all the information. You clear this. And after doing that, you can see that now we were in the main branch. Now we are in the master because we do have a Git repository in the directory that we just entered. And if you want to confirm, you can run this command, and surely you do have .git. Let's go back to the notes. We did this, we did clone, we did cd. Now we're going to make some changes because we want to be working with an existing Git repository. Now to make some changes, we can simply just use vi. This is the name of the file that we want to make changes. And in here, we can simply just, you have to put it in the insert mode. So you are looking for letter I on your keyboard, insert. This allows you to be able to edit your file. Now, what we're going to do is to add something else. So now, of course, we give some guidelines. We are now going to clean our system. And to be able to clean our system, we're going to use a command sudo apt get auto clean. You can use that, or you can use a sudo apt get clean. If you don't know whether you need to put confirmation, there is no issue. You can put -y for confirmation purposes. It is not going to affect anything. Now, after adding this information, we need to do escape. Then we need to do shift because we want to save this information. Again, I'm going to repeat again. We were in insert mode. It means that we could edit the file. We need to come here on your keyboard and press escape. When you do that, insert disappear. Then you need to do shift colon. That is going to allow us to type X after the colon, exclamation mark, and enter, and that information has been saved. You can verify by just typing cat, the name of the file, and you are going to see, yes, this information has been added into the file. We clear this, we go back to the notes. After making some changes, we still need to go back to what we were doing when creating a new repository. Now we're going to follow the same steps, some of them. So we're going to add these changes to the working directory. But before that, let's verify that we do have some changes to add. And the command is git status. Enter, yes, you can see that yes, we do have changes that need to be added. To do that, we saw is git add hyphen and dot, not hyphen, git add and dot. Enter. Then you clear this. come and say git status, and surely we can be able to see that we have been able to add the changes in the working directory. Now what we need to do is to commit. To commit the changes, we need to say git commit -m, git commit -m. We can say more changes. We added the auto clean command. Enter. And when you do that, now you can come back and check git status, and you can see that now everything has been committed. When you're done with that, it's now time to be able to push the changes that we have made to the remote repository. Come back here. To do that, you're given the command git push origin master. When you do that, you should be able to see what will happen. Yes, now these changes has been added, committed, and now we have been able to push these changes to the remote repository. Let's go to our GitHub and verify this. Just need to refresh this, and we can see, yes, let's click on it. Yes, these changes has been added. And that's exactly how you work with an existing Git repository. In section 3, we are not focusing on pull request. We are not focusing on Git conflict. We are not focusing on Git fetch, Git pull. That is going to be for another section. Now, I just want us to come to the version control essentials. And in here, I just want us to go through some notes that will help you to become clear on this and also strengthen your concept knowledge about how version control works. We have Git, which is a version control. We do have GitHub, which is another version control. But some people give these tools different kind of names. There are some people who call Git a source code management tool. There are others who call GitHub an online storage for Git repository. But in simple terms, these are nothing but just version control. Now, commit the changes to the working directory. We saw this. This is how we are able to add changes, and then we commit them using this command. And the notes are telling us this command commit the changes with a commit message. Of course, it's very important you include the message. Another thing we need to understand is something we call the Git tag. We use tags so that the process of releasing the features is easier. Let's say we are versioning an infrastructure. We can give that infrastructure versions, version 1, version 2, version 3, so that we have ability, of course, to keep track of what is happening. We can be able to know yesterday we deployed version 1. Today, we are going to deploy version 2. And this is all based on the changes that you have made. To be able to create a tag is very simple. It's git tag -a, the version, and of course the message. Let's come here and run this command. Of course, you can use double quotation, but I like to use single. Again, you cannot mix double and single. If you use single quotation, use single quotation. If you use double, you use double. Then you enter, you clear this. See what will happen. Now, you can display the history of what we have been doing simply by typing git log. That's how you can see the history of the commit. And as you can see, these are all the commits we have done. And because we added a tag to our repository, you can now see that, yes, we have a tag here, version 1, and that helps us to know exactly which infrastructure code or which feature was actually released to other environments. So Git tag is very important. Make sure you understand what it does. Some people actually confuse Git tag and Git merge and Git commit. So don't confuse Git tag specifically with Git commit. You first of all do the Git commit, then you can do the Git tag after. Next, of course, we saw this. You can always merge branches. You can merge one branch into another using the command git merge, the name of the branch that you want to merge into the other one. You can switch branches or restore a working tree simply by saying git checkout. This is what we went through in section 2, where we were creating new branches. Let's come back here. Let's enter here, git. We saw that, of course, we only have the master. We can create another one. We just need to give it a name. Let's say feature. And of course, now if we run the command git branch, we can see that, yes, we have created another branch. We can switch to it. That's what the notes are saying git checkout and the name of the branch. And of course, you can see. Now you can also merge this one, git merge. Do that. But again, we don't have any changes that we need to merge. The feature branch, we haven't made any changes, so it's already up to date. We clear this. We come here and say git branch. Of course, we return back to the master by saying git checkout master. And we are back the master. We can also use this command, which we saw, git branch -b login feature. This, wait a minute, git branch, let's see what we have. Git -b login details. So you can also use this one, of course, to be able to create a branch and check out into it. Go back and again, this command will be used to create new branches as we saw. And again, we saw this command to list all the branches. You can also use git branch -d, and you can delete the branches as you wish. This git branch. Of course, you can come here and delete the login details. Git branch -d login details. And you can do that. Then, of course, we cannot because we need to check out first. We must check out first into another branch before we can be able to delete it. Now we can just record our command. We are done. Continue. And that brings us to the end of section 3. Thank you so much. I'll see you in section 4.